So imagine you are a 62-year-old, highly respected bridge engineer. You know, you have this comfortable home, a very prestigious job, and your whole life is basically, well, optimized and predictable.
Right, highly structured.
Exactly. Now, I want you to imagine just walking away from all of that. You leave it behind to go sleep in the dirt, filter your drinking water out of like muddy little streams, and walk 2,200 miles through 14 states.
Which is an undertaking in the best of conditions, but...
Right, but here is the kicker. You are doing all of this starting on a foot that is already severely injured. Like, before you even take step one at the trailhead.
It just sounds like a terrible idea on paper. I mean, we are talking about the Appalachian Trail here, right? The AT. Over those 2,200 miles, a thru hiker accumulates roughly 460,000 feet of elevation gain and drop.
That number is just staggering.
It really is. That is the equivalent of climbing from sea level to the summit of Mount Everest, 16 separate times. So doing that with a compromised physical foundation is basically the absolute definition of starting on the back foot.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because today, our deep dive is taking us straight into the personal 2025 Appalachian Trail Journal of that exact man. He's a bridge engineer named Gregor Woolman.
Though on the trail, he is known simply as Gutsy.
Gutsy, yeah.
Yeah.
And our mission today is to pull apart the really gritty, sometimes hilarious, and just profoundly human realities of abandoning a comfortable life to go walk in the woods for 6 months.
Because reading his daily logs, you quickly realize this isn't just on long nature walk.
Oh, not at all. It is this intense masterclass in confronting fear, relying entirely on total strangers, and, you know, recalculating your entire existence when your meticulously laid plans just inevitably fall apart.
And honestly, the audacity of his very first step is what anchors this whole journey.
Yeah, we have to talk about that.
Before we even get into his wilderness survival tactics, we have to look at the psychology of a man who willingly chooses this level of hardship. In his journal, Gregor is actually very upfront about his why.
Right, his motivation.
Yeah. His biological clock is ticking, and he feels he should probably retire. But the idea of just sitting at home, you know, moping about the brevity of life, that is just completely unacceptable to him.
He actually compares the sheer scale of attempting the AT to the audacity of his immigration to the United States 39 years ago.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. He wants a massive, life-defining adventure to bookend his career. So he lives in Blacksburg, Virginia, which is conveniently right near the 1/3 mark of the trail. And channeling that structured engineering mindset of his, he plans this perfect wraparound hike.
Starting and ending right near his home at the McAfee Knob trailhead.
Exactly. It's so neat and tidy.
It's a beautifully symmetrical plan.
Yeah.
But, you know, that desire for a perfectly engineered psychological reset, it just crashes headfirst into physical reality the literal moment he starts.
Because you cannot philosophize away acute physical pain.
No, you really can't.
I mean, starting a 2,200-mile hike with existing tendinitis, that is essentially like entering a hot dog eating contest when you have an abscessed tooth.
That is a very vivid image.
Right. It just guarantees maximum agony from minute one. And the wild part is he gave himself this injury, which is specifically in the hallux longus, just from the process of training for the hike.
Yeah, and we should probably pause to explain what the hallux longus actually is, just because it highlights how precarious his whole situation is.
Please do, because it sounds painful.
It is. The flexor hallucis longus, that's the tendon that runs all the way down your leg and flexes your big toe.
Yeah.
So when you take a step, your heel strikes, your foot rolls forward, and then that specific tendon bears the entire brunt of your push-off force.
Oh, man. So every single step.
Every single step. Walking over 2,000 miles with a damaged push-off mechanism is structurally terrifying.
Especially for an engineer who understands load bearing.
Exactly. And Gregor admits in his very first entry that he only has a 25% confidence level of making it past Daleville, which is the very first town on his route.
Just 25%. And his colleagues back at his engineering firm, H&TB, they are fully aware of how crazy this is, too.
Well, that they were.
Oh, totally. He notes that high-level officers there, guys like John Barton and Scott Rue, they react to his hiking ambitions with just wide-eyed disbelief.
Like, what are you doing, Gregor?
Right. They are supportive, sure, but you can tell they are deeply worried about him. And honestly, their worry is justified immediately.
Day one problems.
Day one, it is freezing cold up in the Virginia mountains, and he realizes he left his insulated winter gloves in his resupply bag.
Oh, no. Where was the bag?
Safely sitting in a car with his wife, Corinne.
Oh, that is brutal. leaving him to hike through freezing temperatures wearing nothing but waterproof rain mitts, right?
Yeah, which provide absolutely zero thermal insulation.
Zero. It's a classic logistical blunder. But, there is a really fascinating contradiction in his journal entries from these early days.
What's fascinating here is the contrast, right?
Exactly. Think about it. As a bridge engineer, Gregor's entire professional life revolves around calculating risk and preventing structural failure. So he explicitly lists his greatest fears on the trail, which are his legs, knees, feet, or hips giving out.
He also worries a lot about ticks and Lyme disease.
Right. He knows exactly how physical infrastructure breaks down, and right now his own body is the infrastructure.
But then right next to those very clinical lists of catastrophic physical fears, he lists his hopes. He is hoping for serenity. He wants a total body reset. He's looking for acceptance and friendship.
He is basically applying a highly analytical mind to try and achieve an entirely unengineerable emotional state.
That is such a good way to put it. We constantly carry our professional and personal identities with us into new environments.
We can't help it.
Right. And the wilderness simply forces us to see if those identities hold up under pressure, which I think brings us to how a guy who calculates load-bearing weights for highway bridges actually handles the chaotic, messy reality of sleeping out in the woods.
Yes. And to really understand how he operates out there, we have to talk about how he earned his trail name.
Gutsy.
Gutsy. It is the perfect origin story for an engineer facing a weird problem. So a couple of years prior to this AT attempt, he was doing an overnight hike with a group of his wife's students.
Okay.
He is preparing this freeze-dried backpacker meal for dinner, and he accidentally stirs the little desiccant packet right into his food, assuming it was a spice pack.
Wait, you mean those silica gel packets?
Yes. The ones that literally say do not eat in 12 different languages.
The ones packed in to absorb ambient moisture. Oh my gosh. Wait, so what did he do? Did he just toss the food?
Well, that's the thing. Most people would panic and throw it into the woods. Gregor just eats it anyway.
You are kidding.
He survives without incident, obviously. And the students start calling him Iron Stomach, which then kind of evolves to Iron Guts. And finally, it just settles on the name Gutsy.
That is hilarious. But it's also, like, weirdly pragmatic.
Exactly. Look at the underlying pragmatism. He calculates the variables in his head. The chemical toxicity risk of silica gel is actually relatively low, but his body's immediate need for calories out in the woods is very high.
So the calories win out over the potential poison.
Right. Therefore, he proceeds with the meal. He applies pure logic to a bizarre situation. But, as we see in the journal, the trail constantly throws situations at him where logic and physics just refuse to cooperate smoothly.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because the bear hang is the absolute best example of this. I mean, think about it. Gutsy designs infrastructure that holds up thousands of cars, right?
Like massive steel and concrete bridges.
Yeah. But his journal is just filled with this intense, almost comical frustration over trying to rig a simple piece of nylon rope over a tree branch.
The Pacific Crest Trail bear hang, the PCT hang.
Right. He is trying to use the PCT hang. Can you explain that real quick for people who haven't tried to hide food from a bear?
Sure. So traditional bear hangs usually involve just throwing a rope over a branch, you haul your food bag up, and then you tie the other end of the rope around the trunk of the tree.
Seems simple enough.
It is. But bears are incredibly intelligent problem solvers. They've learned that if they just walk up to the tree trunk and slash the tied rope with their claws, the food falls right out of the sky.
Like a piñata.
Exactly like a piñata.
Ah.
So the PCT hang is designed to outsmart them.
And Gutsy's journal actually includes literal hand-drawn sketches on graph paper mapping out the physics of this system. It's so on brand.
Very on brand. Instead of tying off to a trunk, you make a small loop in the rope, you feed the line through it, and you lock it in midair using a carabiner and a small stick as a toggle.
So the bag just hovers there.
Right. The food bag ends up suspended in thin air, hanging down from the branch, with absolutely nothing tied to the tree trunk for a bear to swipe at.
It is a brilliant system on paper. But Gutsy doesn't just want to execute the maneuver. He wants it to be, like, mechanically optimal.
Of course he does.
He writes about his deep frustration with the friction of the rope dragging over the rough oak bark. The physics aren't cooperating. The environment is textured and stubborn. He is basically trying to impose a clean, engineered solution onto a fundamentally messy forest.
And that friction between a perfectly engineered plan and a messy reality, it isn't just about ropes and trees. It happens inside his own body.
Oh,
Yeah, because you simply cannot engineer human biology, which he learns the hard way during his first midnight disaster.
Wait, is this his first experience with dispersed camping?
It is.
Okay, so for those unfamiliar, dispersed camping means he isn't sleeping at a designated wooden trail shelter with a privy, a bathroom. He is just pitching his tent alone in the wild, this time up on Cove Mountain.
Right, and the wind is howling, the trees look precarious, and he is running very low on drinking water. Then, in the pitch black of night, he is hit with an absolutely undeferrable stomach emergency.
Let me guess. Brought on by what he was eating.
Brought on by eating a series of highly spiced backpacker rice and bean meals.
Oh, gutsy. So he is out in the freezing dark, frantically trying to dig a cat hole to bury his waist in the famously rocky Virginia mountain soil.
While actively holding in a biological disaster.
Right. He notes his frantic digging resulted in more of a, quote, shallow depression than a proper hole. But the real kicker is his cleanup strategy.
The bidet crisis.
Yes. Hikers often use a water bottle with a special nozzle as a makeshift backcountry bidet to stay hygienic, but Gutsy couldn't use his.
Because he was too low on drinking water to spare a single drop.
Which is a compounding logistical failure. Why was he so low on water?
Because water is incredibly heavy. It's about 8 pounds per gallon.
Yeah.
And his pack was already painfully heavy because he was carrying far too much food.
Out of pure fear.
Exactly.
He had read all these horror stories of thru hikers facing severe starvation and extreme weight loss, so when he was in town, he overcompensated and packed days and days of excess food. And every extra pound of food in his backpack translates directly into crushing downward force on that injured hallux longus tendon.
So he basically traded the fear of starvation for the reality of acute physical pain. And in doing so, he compromised his water supply, which led directly to the midnight bidet crisis.
It is just a domino effect of anxiety-driven decisions.
It really is.
Yeah.
But to his credit, this is where the engineer steps back in to save his own life.
Oh.
Following that miserable night, he sits down and attacks his pack weight with caloric mathematics.
Of course he does.
He breaks his survival down into a strict unemotional equation. He calculates that he needs 3 500-calorie meals a day, plus a 250-calorie snack for every single hour he hikes.
Okay, so let me do the math. 1,500 base calories plus 6 hours of hiking snacks. That equals exactly 3,000 calories to sustain a 12 to 15-mile hiking day.
Spot on. He thaws the fear of starvation and the physical agony of a crushing backpack with a single spreadsheet-style equation.
But wait, doing the math on a piece of paper is one thing. The human body burning thousands of calories, hauling a heavy pack over mountains. Did his math actually hold up in the wild? Because I imagine your metabolism must go absolutely haywire out there.
Oh, it does go haywire. Hikers actually call it hiker hunger. You just can't get enough food.
Hey.
But establishing that baseline 3,000-calorie equation, it gave his brain permission to stop panic packing.
Ah, I see.
It was less about perfect nutritional science and more about managing his primal anxieties. He couldn't control the rocky soil on Cove Mountain or his digestion, but he could absolutely control his caloric input ratio.
That makes total sense. But even with all those ratios and systems, he quickly realizes he cannot survive out there entirely alone. I mean, he goes out seeking isolation, but the trail forces him to rely on this bizarre, beautiful traveling village of strangers.
The social ecosystem of the trail is arguably wilder than the actual wildlife.
It really is. And the culture shock he experiences is immediate. When he goes into town to resupply, he gets his first hitchhike from a local guy in a pickup truck. The man is perfectly friendly, but Gutsy realizes he only understands about half of what the local is saying due to the regional dialect.
And it goes both ways. When he camps at the Middle Creek campground,
Ooh.
which is full of locals with their RVs and fishing gear, Gutsy feels like a complete alien.
Yeah, he reflects on the fact that after 39 years of living in the U.S., he still has a very thick Swiss-German accent. He notes that people's eyes just go wide the second he speaks. He's a stranger in a strange land.
But notice how quickly that sense of alienation vanishes the moment he interacts with the infrastructure built specifically for thru hikers.
Oh, the contrast in the places they sleep is staggering.
It's hilarious.
One night, to escape the freezing temperatures, he stays at Stanimal's Hostel in Glasgow, which is run by a guy named Daytona Mike.
Gutsy affectionately calls it a dive.
No, total dive. It is absolutely packed with dirty hikers, and there is exactly one bathroom for about 20 beds.
Sounds fragrant.
Right. But then just a few days later, he arrives in Waynesboro and stays at the Bowman House Bed and Breakfast.
Which is run by a host named Dave Comrade Smith.
Yes, and it is this elegant, stately brick mansion. But even inside this beautiful B&B, the messy hiker reality creeps in.
How so?
Well, the designated hiker heaven is tucked up in the attic, and the bathroom up there is built directly into the staircase. So when a hiker is using the bathroom, the entire staircase is blocked.
That's amazing.
It's this hilarious collision of high society lodging and hiker trash reality.
And the cast of characters sharing these bizarre spaces is incredibly diverse. In the normal, paved-over world, these individuals would likely never cross paths, let alone share intimate sleeping quarters and meals.
Oh, we have to talk about some of these people because Gutsy's journal entries about them are wonderful. You have Tennessee Slim, who is completely homeless, living out of his backpack and hiking the trail with his beautiful husky named Buddy.
Buddy the dog, yeah.
Then you have a guy named MBL, or Milkbone. When he isn't out in the woods, he drives an Amazon delivery van. But out here, he is just crushing 30-mile days because he is a Triple Crown hiker.
And for anyone who doesn't know, meaning he has already tackled or is in the process of tackling, the holy trinity of American long-distance trails. That's the Appalachian Trail, the Pacific Crest Trail, and the Continental Divide Trail.
That is nearly 8,000 miles of walking.
It's unbelievable.
You also have the Raven, a 74-year-old throat cancer survivor. He is carrying this massive 42-pound backpack, just steadily putting in 10-mile days and building warm fires for freezing hikers at the Thunder Hill shelter.
And then there are my personal favorites. Two hikers Gutsy affectionately dubs the Dilly-Dallies.
Oh, Bumblebee and Skittles.
Yes. Bumblebee just finished a degree in computational biology and frequently talks about her urologist dad, who she casually refers to as a dick doc.
Which is just so funny. And her hiking partner, Skittles, is a runner who works at a running store up in Boston. It is a completely eclectic, random assortment of humanity.
But they are functioning as this tight-knit society.
I have to pause and question this, though. Isn't the whole point of going into the deep woods to get far away from society? I mean, in his first few days, Gutsy explicitly stated he wanted serenity. He was terrified of the wind, lonely in his tent, and even got annoyed when people at the trail shelters wouldn't talk to him.
That's true, he did.
Yet suddenly, he is absolutely thriving while sitting around a table at Benny Stively's in Waynesboro, eating pizza at a massive hiker trash dinner with a computational biologist and a Bavarian hiker named Ghost.
Right.
Why does a guy seeking nature end up clinging so tightly to this random society of people?
It's a profound shift, isn't it? And it forces us to ask what we are actually trying to escape when we flee into the wild. We usually think we want to escape people, but in reality, we often just want to escape the rigid structures, the judgments, and the societal expectations that govern our everyday interactions.
We want to escape the networking and the posturing.
Exactly. This raises an important point about the Appalachian Trail. It acts as the ultimate social equalizer.
How do you mean?
Out there, your corporate title, your bank account balance, your past mistakes, they entirely vanish. When you are standing in the freezing rain with soaked boots, trying to boil water over a tiny metal stove, a 62-year-old senior bridge engineer, a 20-something biologist, a retired 67-year-old chemist named Detour, and a homeless man, they are suddenly absolute peers.
The shared dirt is the great equalizer.
They are all walking the exact same path, subject to the exact same unpredictable weather. The artificial hierarchy of the corporate world is entirely replaced by a community of mutual survival.
Wow.
That is why he thrives at that pizza dinner. In that moment, he isn't Gregor Woolman, the aging engineer with a ticking biological clock and an injured foot. He is simply Gutsy, a hiker who pushed through the exact same grueling 4,000-foot mountain climbs as Bumblebee and Skittles.
That is incredible. He walked into the woods to reset his physical body, but the trail ended up resetting his entire social context.
And that gets to the core synthesis of what we are reading in this 2025 journal. Gutsy's deep dive into the wilderness isn't really about the mechanics of walking 2,200 miles. It isn't even really about battling an inflamed hallux longus or sketching out the friction coefficients of a bearang.
It's about the deep vulnerability of stepping entirely out of your comfort zone. It is about learning to accept help from strangers when your original, highly engineered plan falls apart.
Which it always does.
Always. It's about realizing that life gets messy, whether that is a literal midnight disaster trying to dig a hole in rocky soil, or the metaphorical realization that you simply cannot control every variable. Sometimes you just have to be willing to recalculate your path.
Which brings this entirely back to you listening right now. You do not need to quit your job, abandon your home, and walk across 14 states to experience this kind of necessary reset in your own life.
Thank goodness for that.
Right. But looking at Gutsy's journey, You have to ask yourself, where in your own life are you carrying excessive pack weight out of pure fear?
Oh, that's a great question. Where are you overburdening yourself with massive contingency plans just because you are terrified of a little failure or discomfort?
Or where are you stubbornly trying to over-engineer a complex solution to a problem when what you really need to do is just look at the person standing next to you and ask for a little help?
Because Gutsy found his emotional peace not in total isolation, but in the shared struggle with the dilly-dallies, with the Raven, with Tennessee Slim.
He found his serenity in the community that caught him when his engineered plans failed.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over today. Think about the philosophy of the trail name.
It's such a unique tradition.
It really is. On the trail, you are stripped of your job title, your bank account, and even the name your parents gave you. You are named purely for your quirks, your community role, or a single defining action you took, like eating a desiccant packet.
Right, something totally unfiltered.
Exactly. So if you were stripped of your real-world identity today, all the titles and the posturing, what would your trail name be?